Leadership Rediscovered. I'm your host, Laura Siebold. Today's episode is a continuation of my conversation with Krista Goodrich. If you haven't had a chance to listen to part one, please go back and do so because Krista's story is fascinating. And really, this episode is just a continuation of that amazing story.
And that's the best I can do. And so, but that turning off, and I don't have voicemail on my phone.
That's awesome. So if they can't leave you a voicemail, and then if they text you, you don't get the notification until you're at a time where you can see it. And I know, I'm so glad that you have talked through this because that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you. I know that you are just knocking work out like crazy, but I also know that you travel, you're physically fit, you know,
I
you're
make
health
time for
conscious.
me.
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out, okay, how does she get all of this done in a day? Because it is a lot.
Yeah. I don't require a ton of sleep, and everyone's different in that.
Yes.
And I know there's tons of research about the hours of sleep you need.
Sleep and all
so
that. Yeah.
I'm sure researchers are way smarter than I am about this, but for me, I've never, not since I was a kid. So if I sleep 8 hours, I'm going to sleep 20 hours. You know, it makes me so sleepy.
Yeah.
So, and I wake up with sheer adrenaline. I really shouldn't even drink coffee. That's probably why I don't sleep that much, but I love it. So I do.
Yeah.
I like Monsters too. Whatever. But
it's all making sense now.
Yeah. So that's how I am. When I was injured with something a long time ago, and they gave me some medication to take, and it was should cause drowsiness.
Oh no.
I'm going to be honest. This is what happened. I was managing a 5K at the time. I was going to run it, but I put it together.
Injured.
Yeah. And I put it together for one of the nonprofits that I work with.
Yeah. And
it was their first one, and it went really well, but I had to be there at 4:00 in the morning. So I woke up and I took this medicine that they gave me, and I was running faster around that place, and it's supposed to make you drowsy.
Yeah, the opposite effect.
It literally was I've never done crack or anything, but that's what I would imagine someone like a chicken with their head cut off. What in the world? And so that's it. And everyone that knows me is just adrenaline it runs through me.
You're just wired.
I'm wired that way.
Yeah.
I have to work out. I don't work. Well, I work out because I want to stay in shape, but I have to work out because I have to release the energy. If I don't, I will never sleep.
Yeah, because you'll just combust.
Yeah.
So there was something else that you said that I was also curious about because you're a high performer. You're, I think, achievement oriented. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but definitely. I mean, you definitely go after goals. And I was thinking about as you're trying to lead other people, how do you marry those two? Because sometimes that can be a hard transition, especially if the career you grew up in, a lot of it was you producing, and then you shift to an environment where now you have employees, right? Well, talk about that.
Yeah. So when I was listening to your podcast, and I know you talk about leadership style, and I really had to think, I'm like, what? And I don't know that I have a great answer either. What is my leadership style?
Yeah.
And it varies in the different situations I'm in. So like I said, I'm a chameleon.
Yeah.
And so different people require different styles of leadership, and I'm able to provide that. A lot of times it works. Sometimes it doesn't. So there's some people that I would like to be like a laissez-faire, hands-off. I want people to have it within themselves to be driven to succeed.
Yeah.
I'm sad to know, and it makes me sad because I don't understand it. They may not be sad, but it makes me sad that some people just don't have that.
Yeah.
Some people... And this is whatever they have is enough.
Yes.
Not that either one's right or wrong.
Yeah.
I say to Kim all the time, Kim, when's enough? When are we stopping? What's enough? And she'll say, it's never enough. And she's like this tiny little cute. Everyone thinks she's the nice one and I'm the mean one. I'm like, oh no, that's not. She's secretly behind the scenes, because I'm always the front face and she's the behind the scenes. I'm like, I'm the Sarah Blakely.
Tiger.
She's the real. Yeah, she is. She was a dragon this morning.
Oh my
so
gosh.
yeah. But I think, and I have to remind her sometimes. I'm like, a lot of the people we work with, they don't need to run 25 companies. That's not their goal. So you can't expect them to act like that. If we identify and we truly believe, both of us in our leadership, that you've got to find the right job for the person.
Yeah.
So, and we just had a shift yesterday morning, and if he listens, he would be very full-heartedly behind this. But we have someone that's fantastic at customer service. I want him to answer every client call that comes in.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what I told him yesterday. I said, you're so good at it. Like, if you answer a client calling in they're going to be happy. We're getting 5 stars no matter
Mhm.
what. The problem is he's horrible at follow through.
Oh.
Horrible. Like, it's just not his thing.
Uh-huh.
So clients calling in, great. He needs to run the client service department, right?
Yeah.
But he had 2 roles, and the second role I said,
Can't.
you can't do it. It's just not for
Yeah.
you. And he was so relieved. He was thankful.
Mhm.
He's like, I appreciate this. And we don't.
Because he probably knew that about himself, but he was probably trying to please and make you
Yeah,
happy and be successful.
and he needs a paycheck, and he doesn't want to say I can't do this.
Yes.
And so I said, I don't know what the job is for you, because we don't need a client service manager at this point.
Yeah.
But I like you, and you're really good at it, so I don't want to lose you. So we just changed things up, and we've done that with almost everyone that works for us. Most of them have started in one job.
Yeah.
And when you interview someone,
it's a gamble.
Yeah,
you don't know.
You only learn so much, and they're going to tell you the best things you want to hear.
Right.
So
and they don't know what they're walking into either.
They don't either. And so
everybody's kind of selling each other on like the opportunity.
Yeah, just work hard, and then let's see where you migrate to. So Andrea, our head of maintenance, is a woman.
Yeah.
And she's really good at it. She started off as sales. That's not her thing.
Yeah.
And she doesn't like to smile. I love her to death, and I tell her all the time. Yesterday was her birthday, so happy birthday,
Andrea.
Like smile. She doesn't. Awesome. She does not like to smile. We talk about, I'm like, you have to smile at people. And
I
she's
need to meet this person. Maybe the two of us together would
balance each other out.
Yeah.
Like, she literally won't smile, and she's happy. She just won't smile.
That's funny.
So, but that's hard in sales.
Yes.
It's impossible in sales.
Yes.
And I'm like, put a mirror in front of your desk. Like, let's do whatever we need to do. And because I know her heart is good.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work. But she's really good at following through, which is huge in maintenance. She's really good at identifying issues and saying, here's how we can do. So we just changed her role. So that's, I guess, my leadership is that I'm very open to identifying everyone has different strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
And like we've talked about, I wasn't math and science, not my thing.
Not my thing.
And people assume I'm good at math.
Well, especially when you say I have a degree in economics, they're like, oh.
There's 0 math in economics.
Yeah.
There's really not math.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe there's a little, but it's not much at all.
Yeah.
So my husband's an engineer. He's excellent at math. He could help you study calculus, and I passed calculus. I don't know how. I do know I went to a tutor every day for it, but it really was a miracle. But and if you put it in front of me, I'd be like, I don't know what that is. So it wouldn't be logical for me to have a job as a math teacher.
Yes.
That wouldn't benefit the people I was working with or myself. Yeah. And I'd be miserable. So when someone comes in, I think too often companies will say, well, you're not working out in this role.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they're a bad employee or if they're bad staff, whatever, great.
Yeah.
Then they don't need to be there. We've certainly let people go.
Sure.
But if they are a good staff, especially in this environment, if they show up to work and they work hard, there's a place for them.
Yeah.
You just got to figure out what it is.
Well, and I love that. There's a lot of learning in there because, number one, you're taking the time to get to know people and to identify what their strengths and weaknesses are, right? And then the other piece is that you are invested in them, that you're not just because there's a lot of people that go into work every day that are afraid that that's going to be their last day, and you're right. There are people who probably should be let go, and they know that.
Yeah, they're definitely
know. But then you've got a huge population, honestly, of people who are trying their best and are doing their best, and maybe it isn't the right fit, but maybe they like the company, or maybe they like working for you, and they're, they don't want to disappoint you and say this job's not really for me. And the fact that you're committed to them, you're going to get higher levels of performance out of people if they know, hey, listen, it's okay that maybe we move you around a little bit, or, you're not necessarily going to be shown the door.
Yeah. And the gentleman yesterday, he had come to me 2 or 3 months ago, and he said, listen, I like working a lot, and I'm thinking about getting a second job because they don't have children right now, and he's got the time to do it. And he really likes bartending, people person. Like, this is my customer service guy, right?
I feel like I would love to be a bartender. I've never done it. I don't stay up late, though, so I need some, afternoon shift of some kind.
Yeah. So, but he said, before I go apply anywhere else, would you be willing to consider me at the bar?
Oh.
And I said, yeah. I don't manage the bar. I said, I'm a silent partner. I'm not really that silent, but I'm I don't really have a huge voice in the day-to-day operations. Yeah. So, but I did email the manager and said, I'm going to give a high recommendation.
Yeah.
But what was nice is he wanted to work for me first.
Yeah.
And most of my staff is extremely loyal.
Yeah.
There is a downside to that, though. And I want to be very clear on that, is when someone's extremely loyal, there can come times, and there have many times, where sometimes they can develop an anger if things change in a direction they don't like. I don't have anyone like that right now, so I can clearly say that. But yeah, if someone, like, I've had lots of assistants and stuff, and they travel with me, everything's wonderful, we're good friends, and I am friendly with my staff. There's no line, because like you said, it's my life.
Yeah.
It's my life. And I know,
very relatable and personable anyway, so I can't imagine you being,
Yeah, and Kim is way more, and she's changed. She's more fun now with everyone, but we work together. We have crazy hours in the jobs we do. So I just can't be that person. So I'm friendly with them. Yeah. But there comes a time where I still have to be the boss.
Yes.
And when I sometimes have to make boss decisions, sometimes people get, chip on their shoulder that, well, it's always been this way. Well, change is the only constant.
Exactly. And you have a responsibility to run the business the way you think is the best, and really for everyone that's in that business too. I mean, you're responsible for making decisions that keep that business going and,
keep people
hopefully
employed.
growing. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I totally can relate to that. That was a hard lesson for me too, from a leadership perspective, was, you're going to make unpopular decisions sometimes. And, I'm very friendly with people, and I want everyone to get along and be happy. And, and one of the things I learned, especially as I started to get a bigger team, was you are not going to make everyone happy all the time.
No, you can't make everyone happy.
And so that can be hard, because then there's conflict, that comes in with that. But you are ultimately responsible for making those decisions. And sometimes they are decisions that people aren't going to agree with, but you can't let that get in the way of doing the right thing.
Yeah. 20 years ago, Krista Entrepreneur probably would have been like, ooh, I remember my staff back then, I don't want to hurt their feelings. And I was a much weaker leader than I am now. Yeah. Now it's like, I really don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I never do want to hurt anyone's feelings, but sometimes I can't control that. Yeah. If a decision has to be made, my job is to run the company. Yeah. And that will always be my job. And so I can't make decisions that benefit one and not the company.
Yes.
But going back to why I didn't like corporate America, sometimes I'm like,
so many rules.
I know. I'm like, oh no, I'm that person. Like, I have to be like, listen, you can't
send that email.
I know. And like, there's, I
karma.
have a sailor's mouth, and I've been good today so far. But there's, again, as our companies grow, there's some banter and stuff that happens that you can't. When it was just me, Karen, and Kim, we have a friendship that, and sorry, and my other staff too. I have a friendship with you too. Don't judge that.
Yeah, but your audience really well.
Yeah, and when new people come in, you may say something that you would know that, hey, I'm just joking. I mean nothing by it. Yeah, but someone else might.
Person.
That's right. So that's a hard part about growing. There's many days where I'm like, what's the job where you just don't have to worry about anyone else, and you make a ton of money if that doesn't exist.
Yeah. So. But that's an important point too, because I have worked in organizations and I've also supported organizations in what I do now, that you've got some very, very tenured people. And I've been that person where you kind of look back on the good old days, if the company's changing, but it's not going in the direction you think it should be going. And, suddenly you feel like things are being taken away from you. And it's like, we used to do this and we used to have this, and it's not like that anymore. And I think that can be a real struggle for people. And I think, you have a choice. You're not, no one's like, it's not prison. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay there. If you're unhappy, and, I just think sometimes there can be a lot of bitterness that comes from that. That's where, it's not healthy and it's not productive to sit around and talk about, how it used to be, and to not acknowledge or recognize that things do continue to change and evolve and grow, and you get to choose whether you want to be a part of that or not.
Yeah. Even little things like this year. So I always do really good parties for like the holidays and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So I like to make them as different. Like, you never know what you're getting. And I've done some super fun ones. But this year we were hit in our area by 2 really large hurricanes. Yes. And we still to this day have 20 properties that are not inhabitable. And that was our largest producing property is still not usable. And it provided at least one, if not two incomes for my staff.
Yikes.
So we're holding as best we can as these
Yes.
things get repaired. And we've added on new properties to offset it. But Kim and I had to have a very serious conversation and say, we're having lunch catered for Christmas.
Yeah.
And that's so out of character for me. I'm like
you're used to kind of probably blowing it out.
over the top.
Yeah.
And I know they were all disappointed. But they understand. I mean, they understand, but I think they were hoping that I'd pull from one of my other companies. I don't know what I think they thought.
Yeah.
But I can't do that.
She'll
they don't
figure it out.
I had to make that hard decision because it affected all of my businesses. I mean, the bar was closed. My rental properties were also impacted. Like everything was impacted.
Yes.
So I just said, I can't justify this right now. So, but even things like that, well, every other year we've had, and it's like, guys, I'm not doing it because I don't suddenly like Christmas anymore.
Yeah. Or I don't want to.
Yeah.
But you also explained, I think, in that, especially coming from maybe a more, I come from a corporate background, sometimes the decision is made, something changes, but it's not really the why isn't explained. And so then you're just like.
Yeah. And we're small enough that I can.
Yes.
I can certainly see as we grow, there could come a point where hopefully I'll have managers in place that can also explain, and we still tried to do something and all that. But that part's hard is when they're so used to, and when things are.
You set that expectation.
Yeah. And when it's so personalized and like, it used to be that anytime I'd go travel somewhere, I'd be like, okay, so-and-so come with me. And I can't really do that all the time anymore. And I know that it's like, well, gosh, you used to, I just can't. And it's not, I don't want anyone to ever think it's because I think I'm better than anyone, because I don't. I think I want everyone that works with me to be better than me so that I can just sit back and be like, woohoo,
absolutely,
it's great,
Yes,
so,
but I think that you're right. That is kind of some of the things that just go along with growing and with, changing, and, it's not always better, and everyone's definition of better is different too. So that's what makes it hard. Yeah. So what would you say your official definition of leadership is?
Oh, you don't let me cuss on this one.
And I'm really interested.
I think being a good leader is being unapologetically fierce in what you decide to do, but sprinkled with kindness.
I like that.
So when I make a decision, I make a decision. And not that I'm so stubborn on it that if I know it's wrong, I will certainly change it. But I usually, when I make a decision, there's a reason behind it, and I stick with it. And I, like we just said, I'll share with you, hey, this is why we made this decision. The young man yesterday, this is why I made that. It was a decision that was made. And and the repercussion could have been, I could have lost my best customer service person, because he could have said, well, no, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm quitting.
Right.
But that decision was made. And so I was going to stick with it. And if that's what he responded, then that's what he responded. Yeah. But I sprinkle it with kindness of, I'm a human being too. Yeah. I'm a human being that has good intentions. It doesn't mean every single time it comes out that way.
Right.
So I just happen to be, every one of us has a job in this organization. Mine happens to be to lead it. Yeah. And if they question it, I'm like, listen, if we were going into war, would you want me to run around and be like, I don't know what to do next, guys? Like, what do you guys think we should do? Like, so. Yeah. And that every day is a war of being a successful business, and not in a bad way war.
No, but it is.
Yeah. So that's my job. And I'm like, listen, if any of you guys want the job and the associated pay, which can be zero.
Right.
Can be a lot, but can also be zero.
Yeah.
If you want that, then you need to become an entrepreneur and start your own business. Yeah. And I've had people that have gone and started their own business, and I love when they do that, because that's where they need to be.
Yes.
Well,
yeah, because
I understand it.
You need
I understand it. Yeah. Whenever it happens, other people are like, are you upset? Because sometimes they'll start a business very similar to what we do, because that's what they know. And I'm like, no. How could I be upset? Yeah. How could I be mad about that? They don't steal my clients. I mean, don't be ugly about it. And I've not ever had that happen. But that's not true. I had it happen once. But in generally. So, just go do a great job, and there's enough for all of us. There's enough business. There's such a lacking of good quality, strong companies and workers.
Yes.
That if you're really good at the field you're in, there's enough business for everyone.
Yeah. So, and it's a lift for all of us.
It is. I love talking to other property managers in town. We refer people back and forth.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. It's. I'm like, listen, we can't take this guy right now. Can you take him? Or it's a city that we don't service.
Yeah.
And when we go to meetings and stuff, we all get together and talk about, hey, what's working, what's not working. The ones that care.
Yes.
The ones that are out there to slit your throats and all that stuff, they're not talking.
But they're not
with
a part of your,
No,
you know.
they're not.
Yep.
And so be it for them. They have to sleep in their bed at night. I sleep in mine.
Yeah, absolutely. I really want to talk about your book.
Okay.
Are you good if we hang in a little bit longer
yeah,
here?
You're fine.
Because so Krista wrote The Boss Lady Investor. I can't read the subtitle, but you have to go check it out because it's hilarious. And this book, it's really good. I was looking through it, and it's interesting because, you know, number one, it talks about managing finances. However, it's not the typical approach, which I appreciated. And I think a lot of times there are great resources out there, like the flip top cabinet that you had all the books in there. Yep. But a lot of them are, okay, you have your job and you make this amount of money and then these are your expenses. And, you know, it's a very by the rules. This is what you do. This is how to play the game. And here's how to try to maximize within a certain specific playbook, right? Yep. Your book does give a lot of information about managing finances, but it also is much more, I think, holistic about professional and personal life. I mean, even like, I love the chapters, I gotta say, but like, you know, Marry for Money.
That's everyone's favorite chapter.
Marry for Money. And I was like, what? You know, when I first turned to it. But it, you know, the concept that you introduced without, you know, spoiling it for everyone, but it's, you know, who you marry does impact your finances.
I think it's I will say this to my grave, I think it is one of the largest decisions, one of the biggest financial decisions you will ever make in your life is who you choose to spend your time with.
Yeah.
And specifically, if you happen to get married or be in a partnership or live with someone or whatever, that person, your relationship with that person will impact personally your financial life more than any stock you're ever going to invest in.
Yeah, and we don't always think about that. And so and you're very honest, which I appreciate too. You're funny, so that helps too, because you can just like you
I'm very sarcastic.
Like you talk. Yeah. So I really like, I can hear you, and I know you have an audio version too, but like I can hear your voice when I read this, which I love. But I want to hear a little bit about, you know, what motivated you to write the book.
Yeah.
And because this is a lot of information. This is not a pamphlet. So like this took time.
It did.
A lot of time, I'm sure. So what motivated you to write it?
As soon as I started understanding finances and understanding that there's people that grow up being explained these things, and then there's the rest of us.
Yeah.
And it immediately puts you at a disadvantage in everything. So if my parents didn't know, it's not that they didn't mean, they would have loved to have taught me if they would have known, but they didn't know. Well, there's kind of like elite circles, I guess, or, you know, if you grew up in a certain area, then you're just going to learn. It's not, I don't think it's intentional.
No,
it's just
part of your upbringing.
So for those of us that didn't know, I was a fortunate person that got brought into that world and got to understand it from a very fundamental place.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I got to tell people about this. Hey, if you just start saving money, you can actually become a millionaire. It's really not that hard. You don't have to win the lottery. You don't have to invent anything. You don't have to inherit it. If you just, because compounding interest, the first time I saw a compounding interest chart, my coworkers were like, yes, you should invest in your retirement plan. I'm like, why? And they're like,
because that's what we do.
Right. Because we're telling people to do that.
You have to tell people to do it too.
So they're like, watch. So this guy, he was like, he put in the formula, and it was like, if you put in, I don't remember the number.
Yeah.
$2,000 a year in your IRA. I think that's what the limit was back then. Yeah. If I did that for 10 years and then never did it again, starting at age 21, or if I waited 10 years and started at age 31, and then from age 31 contributed $2,000 a month until I was 59 or whatever the number was, I would have had a higher return doing the 10 years and stopping than waiting.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't have any money when I was 21. So I'm like, right. So I started doing the $25 a month. That's truly how I started investing, was $25 a month. And it's called The Magic of Compound Interest. And you can just Google search that. There's a million charts on it. There's not one chart, and you can put in your numbers of, if I contribute $50 a month, what will it be? And I'm like, oh, I actually can become a millionaire. And it's not impossible.
Yes.
So I needed to share that with people. So that was the first thing that happened. The second thing, my good friend LaDonna, her husband and I, he was a banker in town, and so we did a lot of Chamber of Commerce events and stuff together. And she's a housewife, She was like, it's so boring. And he and I had really good, very in-depth, and I don't know if I should say this or not, but I'm going to, very in-depth conversations about religion. We had very different stances and stuff, but we were very respectful.
Yeah.
We always had very open conversations about it and
Yeah.
why each other felt the way we did. So anyway, she was one of my first staff when I started the art studios because she's a really good artist, and it gave her something to do. Her kids were in high school and college.
Yeah.
She was like, oh, I'll come help you do it. I like painting, blah, blah, blah. Got her out of her shell, super introvert.
Yeah.
And now she could stand in front of a class and teach them, which was great to see.
That's amazing.
And she used to tell me when I'd talk about finance and stuff, because I just liked the topic.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, Krista, it's so boring to me. She's like, I don't even know if we have a mortgage. She's like, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know if you have a mortgage?
Yeah.
She didn't know.
Wow.
And she's like, I don't know. And I said, well, what about your first kids in school? And she's like, I don't know. Paul handles it. I'm like, okay, so you don't know anything about it? And she's like, no, I don't even open the mail. And I'm like, wow. So I didn't know that people like that existed. And so I started talking to other women.
Yes.
And I'm the oddball, not them.
Yes.
So especially in rural Georgia.
Yes.
Well, it was kind of rural. It's an hour outside of Atlanta.
Yeah.
But the standard there was mostly the men were the main breadwinner and the financial decision makers. My family's from Miami. I don't know if that's why I was born weird. I don't know. But so it was just different.
Yeah.
And, my dad, who, sorry, Dad, but he can be extremely chauvinistic, with me and my sister, has always told us that we could do anything we wanted to achieve. So with the two of us, absolute opposite. With everyone else, chauvinistic. But so I was like, gosh, I can't believe you don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Well, they lived in the same neighborhood as us. And Colin and I were sitting on the couch, and these ambulances start flying by one day. And another friend of mine called me a few minutes later, and she said, hey, the ambulances are at LaDonna's. And I was like, what? So I get in the car and I fly over there, and I walked in and I looked at LaDonna right before she fainted.
Oh my gosh.
And Paul had gone upstairs to take a shower and had a massive heart attack and died.
Ooh.
And so I wrote the first 5 chapters at LaDonna's house.
Oh my gosh.
And I sat at her kitchen table. She still wasn't interested, by the way.
Right.
And she had a lot on her mind at that point in time.
Well, yeah.
And her dad ended up taking over her finances, which I'm still mad at you about, LaDonna. But, but she typed it. So I dictated. And they weren't the chapters I ended up using. I refined it quite a bit. But she loves typing. And so I would dictate it and she would type it.
Wow.
And it was for not just LaDonna, but it was for her. It was for Jessie.
For anyone like her.
Yeah. It was for my friends who their husbands or dudes had just taken care of it, and they never were explained it, and they were women, so they weren't expected to understand it. And we outlive our spouses statistically. We're also way better investors statistically, and we're becoming more of the workforce, so we have benefit platforms. And so I just wanted to put it out there and say it's not that hard. And the reason I chose to write it that way, because that was a very intentional decision, was the only other female book at the time that was focused on finance. I don't think she'll listen, but if she does, sorry, Susie Orman. But
I was trying to think of other women.
Susie Orman,
and she was the only one I could think
that's
of.
Her. And there's some more now that do somewhat, but there's definitely more now. But I listened to her book, and it was just like all the other ones.
Yes.
It was a woman being as statistical, and to me it was dry.
Yeah.
So I just thought I wouldn't read that.
Yeah.
I couldn't. It was boring to me, and I'm pretty good at boring. So I was like, how can I get through to women in a way that they're interested to learn about taxes, which is not something women aren't driven towards the stock market. We don't care about alpha, betas, standard deviations. It does none of that. It doesn't interest me either. So it's just not our thing. And then, but what is our thing? Well, we like romance.
It's in here.
Or drama.
It's in here.
We love gossip.
It's in here.
So my story involved a lot of that.
Yeah.
And everyone kept saying, you've got to write a book. You've got to write a book. Because when I would educate my girlfriends about it, they're like, how do you know this? And I'm like, I don't know, I just read,
Yeah.
So that's how and why it came about. And that's why I wrote it. And then I had Grace Everett, who was my editor and got me through the whole thing. She's a millennial. And I said, I need you to help me make this not sound like I was 35 at the time or whatever, but I want a 22-year-old person to read this
pick it up
and not think it's their
like
mom.
Your daughter.
Yeah. And her demographic has been a huge support. I actually had a fraternity house that picked it up, and they circled it throughout the fraternity house, and they messaged me. They all came up to the bar to get my autograph. It was cool.
Awesome.
And they were guys, right? But they were like, we don't care. It's got good information.
No, and I was going to say, even though the title says the Boss Lady Investor, anyone can read it. I
have a lot of guys that have read it.
Yeah, anyone can benefit from reading this book because the information is really good, but also it's very much more interesting.
There's some personal stuff. I've been working on the Boss Lady Real Estate Investor. I actually read some of it to Colin last night, and he's like, when are you going to talk about the finance part? And I'm like, I'm getting to that.
Let's get the most important things down first.
But it all relates, you know, and everything, like the 529 plan section, when you get to that, I started a 529 plan because I knew about them before I even had Tiana. Yeah. So I opened a 529 plan and thought, maybe one day I'll use this for myself to go back and get my master's or something. And so then when I got Tiana, I'm like, oh, I have this sweet thing. Well, because of my knowledge and just, again, $25 a month is where I started. It got it up to $175 a month or whatever it was. Not huge amounts. Yeah. But by the time Tiana got to college, through a variety of strategies, we bought her a house. Oh. But we had, not dorms, but apartments in Fort Myers were $1,700 a month for 3 people.
Oh, I can't even imagine because that's Fort Myers. Vacation. Yeah.
So $1,700 a month for a 3-person apartment. And I'm looking at that. Well, me and Colin could go buy a house. Right. Rent it to 2 roommates for $600 a month, plus they have their own house. Right. And then we made Tiana pay $200 a month, which she was not happy about, but we wanted her to at least.
She's got to have some skin in the game, too.
Yeah. And so we were covering more than our mortgage. We sold it a couple of years ago. We made $115,000 in profit.
That's amazing.
You know, and so I was able to do that. And Tiana's entire college, I took $0 in debt.
Oh, that's amazing.
She was supposed to take, and you'll learn this in the book too. Yeah. She was supposed to take $0 in debt too. That was the whole plan, but it's really hard. And I told you what I did with my student loan money. We won't bring it up. I took the money too. I had to take it to pay for college, but I also took it for silly things as well. Yes. But she still went and took quite a few loans, and she's now learning those lovely.
She's learning the lessons.
Yeah. I'm like, listen, you did it. I'm not bailing you out of that. I set you up for awesomeness, you know, and she's awesome. But so
that's her decision to make.
Yeah, but just learning just a simple thing like that. Yes. People that I hear them, they're like, I don't know how I'm going to put my kid through school. Well, I never for one day, 0 days did I have to worry about it. Yeah. And she went out of state. Wow. We lived in Georgia at the time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, and I think it's helpful too, because you're right. I think, whatever your situation is, I know, a lot of situations where, like you talked about with your friends, where, the woman and, male-female relationship, she doesn't know what's going on and, isn't a part of it. And I know a lot of those stories. I know a lot of stories where, friends of mine are actually the primary breadwinner in the family, but still don't make the decisions. That's okay too. My perspective though is become educated. If it's
exactly that.
In any relationship, that's your business to decide, how you want to operate, who makes what decisions. But for me, there is an importance around at least being educated about, what those decisions are going to be made. You may decide, I don't want to be part of it, to be involved in that. Yeah. I don't want to look at the bank stuff. I don't want to do that. That's totally cool. That's within your relationship to figure out, right? But I do think, are you making that decision because you do know enough to at least be somewhat informed, and you are choosing not to be a part of it because of your own preference, versus I don't know anything about that,
so I'm gonna stick my head in the sand.
I can't be involved in it, because I do think, you gave a perfect example of, the consequences of not knowing.
Yeah, and that's it. It's exactly that. You may not enjoy it. So if you don't, I love money. I love messing with it. I'm very risky with it. Yeah. It's calculated. Right. So everyone thinks I'm way more risky than I am. Yeah. And so, but I enjoy that. Colin doesn't, it's not his favorite thing. Like he likes it. So he doesn't dislike it, but I like it more. Yeah. So I handle it in our house. And, we keep separate bank accounts. But we have each other's passwords. I don't know that either one of us ever really use it unless I have to get like a statement for a new house or something. But we talk about financial decisions, especially big ones. Little ones we don't really talk about. Yeah. But, by doing so, we're able to know that this is my strength, and but if something happens to me, if I were to die in a car accident, he could step in and say, okay, this is where we're basically at. You know, he may not have every single detail, but it's not going to come crumbling down. Whereas there's some people that if one or the other, and I don't care which one, something happens, the other doesn't know and they're lost, and then they go into financial ruin and they don't know how to manage money. And it's like exactly what you said. Just have the option to know enough to be educated. So if you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you don't enjoy it, if it makes you miserable, makes you stressed, you're going to you're depressed and all that, don't do it, you know?
Yeah, and know what the legal aspect is too, because there's so many different types of relationships now. It is not, you know, one model or one size fits all. Not everybody's married and not everybody, you know, there's so many different, you know, ways of being in a relationship right now. And, you know, but there are legal aspects. And so even knowing what your financial rights are in whatever type of relationship you have and whatever structure you have, but even knowing, you know, what legal aspects exist in terms of your relationship and what your financial rights are too. That's huge.
It's huge. So I'm going to say this story because I want anyone to hear it that is possibly in this, because it makes me insane. So one of my very best friends, she was with me throughout writing the book. She had to listen to every chapter. She was a beta reader. There's more, but I'd say more, it'd give away who she is. So she had gotten divorced and started dating this guy who was bit of a narcissist, and you're never a bit of a narcissist.
I was going to say,
but whatever. She's happy enough. She ends up moving. Her and him decide to buy a house, and she's talking to me about it. And I said, "Wait, what?" And she said, "Yeah, well, the deed's in his name." Blah. And I said, "Let's talk about this." And so he took the mortgage. She was not on the mortgage, but she also wasn't on the deed.
Oh boy.
Which wouldn't be a big deal, except that...
But they're not married.
They're not married,
right?
And she was paying him $1,000 a month towards the mortgage.
Oh, so she has nothing.
Nothing. But he's a really good guy, and he would never do that, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Well, as it turns out, he would do that. So when they split up 4 years later, she said, you know, and they talked about it. He was like, you know, if we ever split up, I'll either buy out your portion or we'll sell the house. But he didn't have to, and he didn't. And so she bought her own house recently, and actually she sold that and just bought one in downtown Atlanta. She's really excited about it. She's like, I'm just gonna be a cat lady. But it affected her so much that I don't know that she'll ever be in a relationship again.
Wow.
And it's really sad because she's an awesome person. She's a really good person, but she just is scorned, you know, and she can't believe that she trusted
someone would
him.
Take advantage of her.
Yeah. And I obviously try not to bring it up because it's a sore topic, because I'm like, dude, we had this conversation like so many times, you know, I begged you. I'm like, I'll go talk to him and say, listen, either if you're not going to put her on, she's just not going to pay you. And, you know, if you love her, then you love her, you know, but
don't put yourself in that situation. But it gets back to that education. And again, you know, this podcast is about leadership, but it's not necessarily, sometimes people think it's just only about how to lead other people, which we have talked about today. But it's also, to me, it's about self-leadership and taking care of yourself. And, you know, you can't be a great leader of other people if you can't lead yourself. And to me, this is a part of self-leadership.
Absolutely. If there's a leader that's leading people and then you go home and your financial house is in ruin or your relationship is horrific or whatever. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Finances, relationships, physical fitness, there's ups and downs, period. Sure. That's life. So don't beat yourself up. But if it's bad, if your finances, you know that you're wallowing in debt, or your relationship, you know that it's really bad or whatever, or you know you haven't ate healthy or worked out, like if it's gotten to a bad situation, if you're a leader, if you're not going to do it for yourself, you have to do it for the people you're leading. It's not fair to them to lead them otherwise. Let someone else lead them that will.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, I just think you have to keep your stuff in order if you're gonna be a leader.
Yes,
you gotta be a leader.
You gotta lead yourself first,
right?
That's
right.
Before you can lead anyone else. I love it. Okay, again, your story is so fascinating. You've done so many things. What is next for you? I'm dying to hear.
So next is I've got 2 books going right now.
Okay.
So one is The Boss Lady Real Estate Investor.
Awesome.
And so that one, I've been slow to write it. I have been slow, but COVID happened. There's so many things that happened and that just kind of got me off course. And it's an excuse, and I'm usually not an excuse maker, so I'm even annoyed that I just said that. But there's not an excuse. If I want to do it,
she just hasn't done it.
She's
just being slow, and that's what it is.
I'm just a loser sitting around doing nothing. So anyway,
I can imagine why you haven't had time.
Yeah, so I've been working on that. That's
awesome.
Very exciting. And then the other book is a fiction book.
Oh,
and it's really fun to write. So I'm working on those two. There's a group of friends that we're buying an investment out in Montana, a ranch out in Montana.
Very cool.
And so that's going to be very interesting to see how that goes. We're looking at expanding Salty Dog into other areas of either the country or Florida. There's a few different things happening. That's why I was in Reedy, West Virginia, actually.
Yeah.
And because, you know, that's obviously a huge tourist destination.
Florida and then
Reedy, West Virginia, right? That's clearly next.
Yes.
So there's that. I'm going to Africa
very cool.
in the summer and just trying to grow my business. And, you know, we've suffered lately, and you heard a phone call about it. Like we've had some ratings yesterday that recently that I am not happy about. So my goal is always to be the best, not self-servingly. I want my clients to have the best experience. I want my owners to make the most money. I just want everyone to have the greatest thing they can.
Yeah.
So we're really focused on making sure we're getting 5 stars every single time. And I'm very honest to say sometimes we're the greatest and sometimes we falter, and we faltered lately, and we've got to turn that ship around.
Yeah.
So that's what we're focusing on right now.
Awesome. Oh, this has been so good. Thank you so much. I mean, you shared a ton of information just like the book. I definitely encourage people to check this out because I think, you know, you're very honest and you're very forthcoming and generous with what you share, and, you know, you're just great to listen to and talk to. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Okay, now wait, can we do a lightning round real quick? Okay. That's how I like to end my show. So it's 60 seconds to answer as many open-ended questions as you can. So let me get my timer pulled up here. Okay, on your mark, get set, go. What season best fits your personality?
Summer.
Yes. What's your most used emoji in text?
I'm not good at emojis. Maybe the birthday symbols if I say happy birthday.
Because she doesn't even get the notification. What book, song, movie, podcast has had the greatest impact on your
Bigger
life?
Pockets.
Okay. What's something about you that surprises people when they first hear it?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think anything
Can
surprises.
I answer
Yeah.
that you have a Harley?
Oh, I do have a Harley, yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of cool and surprising.
Oh, and then I'm afraid of flying.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Fill in the blank. I spend too much money on
my boat.
What celebrity would you want to play you in a movie?
I'm going to say, that's a tough question.
No.
I don't know. What celebrity would I want to play me in a movie? Is there a female James Bond?
Ooh, yeah. And I'm trying to think like
Lara Croft Tomb Raider, but not Angelina.
Yeah, no. I feel like
I don't want Jennifer Aniston to do it and take the Angelina role and be like, boom, that was so rude.
That's awesome. Okay, that's a good way to end it. Thank you again so much.
You. This was really fun.
I thought so too. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for joining us. And until next time, shine bright, everyone.